Call the Municipal Planning Commission meeting to order, February 28th. So, any agendas, any from staff?
None from administration, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any from board members? Okay, can I get, thank you.
I'll move the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? That is carried. Our minutes from the January 16th, 24 meeting, they've been distributed. Any errors or omissions? Everybody had a chance to peruse them. Any questions? Mr. Gender moves those. All those in favor? That is carried. And we'll do quick introductions right now, and we'll start with Michelle.
Michelle Hoover, legislative assistant.
Attorney Gender, board member, good morning, afternoon.
Paul McKay, board member, good afternoon.
Dave Brewer, board member, good afternoon. Justin Stevens.
Les Stillberg.
James Nyberg, Chair of the Municipal Planning Commission.
Craig Teal, Director of Planning and Development.
We'll go over here.
Jerry Kushner, manager of IT.
Gregory Jackson.
Rich Fitzgerald, development officer.
And in back. Jared Wood. There you go, Jared.
Kevin McDonald, good afternoon.
And Mr. There we go. Everybody knows everybody, and we have Yvette and Andrew online. Okay. There are no business arising from the minutes. We've done introductions. So if we want to go into, start right out of the get-go with development permit 6.1, and who's taking that? Okay, Rich, your go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of the application is to consider a discretionary use development permit for the construction of an ancillary building. Subject property is located on the south half of 154021 west of the 4th on the south shore of Buffalo Lake. Well-known Old McDonald's campsite is the location of the proposed development. Old McDonald's campsite has worked with the Municipal Planning Commission to maintain the plan development approach throughout the years. The 2010 master plan is the latest guiding document that we have about development for the campground. Development permit applications have been received and permits granted for the campground, as well as various upgrades to the property previously through the years. Then we can snap to the aerial photo. If you see, so I don't know how well you guys can see that, but the proposed location of the building, if you scroll down to the next picture, sorry, up. Oh, just then, yeah, right there, see the box there in the bottom. So on the original master plan, this area was identified as a ball, like a baseball field. That is now going to be changed, and this, the building will be located there. It meets all the required setbacks. There is a bit of a, so because this property is owned by the same people, it's out over 2 quarter sections, but the building actually crossed over that quarter section line. So they are going to combine the properties together so that it's all one title, and then that way we don't have the issue about encroachment on a property line. So scroll down to the next picture, and it shows drawings of the proposed building that will be for the site. It's going to be a multi-purpose building. It's going to be used for storage of equipment and materials throughout the winter months when the campground is not in operation. During the summer months when it is in operation, it can be used to house a multitude of things. If it's a weather, bad weather comes through, they can use it to eat in there or hold functions. The concert that they host in September, they could house it in there if the weather's not good. So, and just some more pictures of the area where it's proposed to be. So, analysis and discussion. The decision must meet the requirements of the land use bylaw. And the land use bylaw goes on to describe what the recreational facility is, because that is what this property is zoned as. It goes through, and these are the requirements of the ancillary building and what it must meet in this district. It meets all the requirements. The height, there is no proposed size, like there is no minimum size for an ancillary building in the recreational facility, but it is a discretionary use, so it's up to council, or up to MPC to approve that. So again, it meets all the requirements that we have. Setbacks are all met. So, and we put a piece in there about that they are intending to consolidate the titles together just to keep the property. So the alternatives, of course, for the municipal planning commission are to approve the application based on the conditions put forward, approve the application based on revised conditions, or postpone a decision on the application to receive further information. And then we have attached a draft development permit, and you can go through and see the conditions that are attached to it, but they're pretty much standard conditions applying to it and ancillary building. That concludes my.
Okay, any questions from the board? Mr. Grover?
Height, they said there's, in a recreational thing, there's no restriction on the height of the building.
Well, it has
There is, because we have one so that we don't have to have a ladder truck to go and put it up.
floor size. The height of the building has to match the height of the main building on the property. So it has to match the height of it. So the garage, or sorry, I guess whichever building is deemed with the primary use, would it be the kitchen or?
Well, yeah, kitchen, reservation office, it's about the same height, it's 2 feet taller than the registration.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Okay. Anything that the applicant would like to say? Miss McDonald, not Kevin.
First time I can see Kevin that he ever talked.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Gender?
I'm not really sure whether I'm getting from the fire department on the classification of the building, on the doors that are, for the exit doors in case of an emergency, on whether it really complies, confirmed.
We've added a couple of doors. The plans you guys have, after we talked to the new fire guy, we added another door on the west side and another garage door on the east side, so what you guys have isn't quite. We did add a couple of more doors after that meeting, so.
And they're all breakaway doors to the outside as like what would may be expected.
There's 2 8-foot garage doors that will be locked open. They have to be locked open to be considered fire exit. And there's a 40-foot door on the south end that will most likely be open as well. A big 5-hole door.
I've got you and I've got.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rich.
I just wanted to comment that we did meet with the fire chief, with the McDonald's, and we went over like his findings and made sure that the recommendations that he brought forward were addressed in the design of the building prior to them having it sent out for final.
That answers your question?
It does. Thank you.
My question was around fire capacity, so I'm satisfied.
Okay, no more questions, concerns from the board? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thanks. Okay, moving on. 6.2, development permit 24006. Who's taking this one? Page 26 of your package, gentlemen. Again, Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of the application is to consider discretionary use development permit application for a home business and automotive repair shop specifically. The subject property is a 1.92 acre acreage located 5 kilometers east of town of Stettler on Township Road 390. The subject parcel is surrounded by a mix of agricultural and residential properties. The subject property is separated by a thick windrow of trees from the nearest adjacent residential property to the east. The subject parcel consists of a detached dwelling with a detached 26 by 28 garage. The current use of the property is residential. The existing garage and detached dwelling are set back a good distance from the road. The applicant is proposing to operate an automotive repair shop in the existing ancillary building. This falls under the use of a home business. The other half of the shop will remain as personal use for parking and storage of personal vehicles and items. Then we go on to look at some pictures. You can see the 2-door garage. That's where the applicant is proposing to operate the business. And then a picture of the equipment that he has in there. And then pictures of the approach, there's clear sight lines both ways. The land use bylaw describes a home business, is a discretionary use in the country residential district. And then it goes on to describe the definition of what a home-based business is and the conditions that must be met. The applicant is the owner. He does reside on the property. This, where he's proposing to operate the business, will not take up more than 30% of the property there. The house will still be residential. I think one of the main points to point out here, this is not he's not proposing to operate this as a full-time, his sole source of business. He has a full-time job. This is more of a thing he does on the side, and for insurance purposes through his home, he had to get all the permits and everything in place to do it. So that was the reasoning behind the application. So we don't suspect there's going to be much traffic drawn up or any type of a nuisance for the neighboring properties or anything like that. He's indicated he's the only employee of the operation. 2 vehicles per week it may draw to the property. And it's going to operate, within the regular business operation times. There'll be nothing. He's not doing any sandblasting or anything that would cause noise issues with the neighbors. So, the recommendation is that administration recommends the development permit be approved with the conditions as detailed in the attached draft development permit. And basically the same thing, just the standard conditions, has to dedicate a parking lot on the property. Any sign has to be no larger than 4 foot square, and operate under the normal business operation times.
That's good.
Yeah.
Mr. Gender?
Move it as presented, please.
Okay, any questions or concerns from anybody? Mr. Grover?
I got one question on the business. I see a tire changer there. Would he be open on Sunday? Because there's not another place in town that you can get a tire change.
That's between you and him, and you can ask that later.
You able to change a tire?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I like to see, and then on the other side, I like to see young people start out, get a small business. That's excellent.
Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. There we go. Okay, next up, development permit 24007, James Bond, page 35.
Chairman, the purpose of the application is to consider the discretionary use of construction of a second dwelling on a parcel of land less than 80 acres. The property is located southwest of Stettler in the ward of Erskine South Warden District. Legal description is southwest of 3820. Access to the property is granted from Range Road 20-5, and the property totals 2.98 acres. The property is surrounded by agricultural land and is the first parcel out of the quarter section. The applicant is on the title as an owner on the primary parcel of the quarter as well. The planned area for the proposed dwelling is level to slightly sloped to the southeast. Scroll down to the picture of the site. So the green box identifies the property. And I should also mention that the applicant is also co-owner of the remainder of the quarter section. So it's not just that parcel that he owns, it's the whole quarter, but we're focusing on this parcel for this application. So then you can see the blueprints of the drawing of the house. Now that may change. The applicant has let us know that there may be some changes to that, but the setbacks from the property lines and the road will not change. The location is going to stay. It's just the exterior of the house may change a little bit. Get some pictures. There are some brushing concerns about the sight lines. So we will be putting a condition on the development permit that, county staff brushes that road back to clear those sight lines up a little bit. So the property is zoned agricultural, and a second detached dwelling, if the parcel of land is less than 80 acres, is deemed a discretionary use. So it just goes through and explains what the secondary dwelling is and the conditions that must be met for it to be considered. The structure will be of new construction and meet all required setback distances from the property boundaries. The existing approach will serve as the access point for both dwellings on the property, so no new approaches proposed for this application. Approach sightlines to the south are unobstructed, allowing for a clear view of any oncoming traffic with the slight bend in the road. Brush clearing will need to be completed as trees are affecting the sightline to the north. So it meets all the setbacks. So the administration recommends that the development permit 24007 be approved with conditions as detailed in the attached draft development permit.
Mr. Silver?
Yeah, I'd be pleased to make the motion to approve the application as it was presented to us, and for two reasons. It's nice to see another residents and more people in our county, and also it's nice to see that it's being put on to an established yard where it's not taking more land out of agriculture production. So I think it's very nice, a win-win all around. So I'd be pleased to move that motion forward.
Go ahead, Mr. Gender.
The sightlines to the north, who's going to be looking after that? Is the county or the land, the residents?
The county will be responsible to, like, so we put the application into Public Works and they'll get out and get it done because it is in our road allowance. So the applicant really has no, like, I guess you'd probably have to work with Public Works to be able to go out there and do it because it's not private land, it's public land.
There has been incidents a couple of years ago when it was up to the landowner to clear them up.
Yeah, I don't know the history behind it. I know there was an instance where the landowner was very particular about how they wanted it done. They didn't want certain trees cut to make sure that it was done the way they wanted it. I think they took it on themselves. I don't know if that was something that we put on them, but you know, I'm sure Public Works would be more than willing to let Mr. Reinbold look after himself if we wanted to, but Public Works does generally, as a rule of thumb, Public Works goes and does the brushing.
So a couple of things, the road isn't heavily used. It's I think it's pretty much just only your family.
There's there's another house just down the road, but it is a dead end.
Yeah, so it is a dead end road, but I don't think you're in love with any of those trees either.
Not-
So that was the difference between those, that one that we previously had done, that individual. It was actually a very flat one. I know which one you're talking about. And, but they wanted to precision cut those trees out. I don't think there's any that.
Yeah, no, I definitely work together.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Stevens and Mr. Clark.
My question was, is the applicant aware of the timelines? And it kind of sparked my interest when you said the exterior of the housing may change. And I just wanted to make sure the applicant was aware of the 1 year to start, 2 years to complete. And
There was a change would be an RTM, so it would be a bit faster.
oh, okay.
So it's just small changes, I guess.
Yeah, no, as long as you're aware and comfortable, then I'm.
Mr. Clark?
Just a question on the total area, like the 2.98 acres. We typically talk about sewage systems and everything. And how does that work tie into this one?
So this one, it'll be required to have a provincially approved wastewater system. So a holding tank is what the applicant has indicated he's going to use. Eventually, if he decides to consolidate the two parcels into one title, then he can have an open discharge because then the property boundaries will be the entire quarter. So we've discussed that issue with him and he knows what he's looking at there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns? We have a motion on the table. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, excellent. And everybody's welcome to wait around and enjoy the rest of our afternoon with us.
And Kevin, you could shovel the snow off the walk when you, just a little bit, you know.
Stick your hand.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Hey.
Lady.
6.4. Abu Bakr? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose is to consider a discretionary use development permit application for an RV to be used as a dwelling on a parcel less than 80 acres. The subject parcel is located on the northeast of 143620 on Range Road 20-1 at the corner of It's a long, narrow tract of land separated by the railway bed in Range Road 20-1. The property is zoned agricultural and is 24.98 acres in size. During site inspections last fall, planning staff noted that 2 RVs were present on the property and appeared to be in use at the time. Planning staff spoke to the landowner, who indicated that the property was being used as a hobby farm with goats, chickens, and a miniature horse, and the RVs were occupied occasionally by himself and sometimes a friend who looks after the animals. The landowner was under the assumption at the time that because the property is zoned agricultural and this was a farming operation in his eyes, that it was exempt from requiring permits. A site inspection was performed on the property on September 19th, and 2 RVs were observed there, both of which were in use. 2 sea cans used for storage, several old RVs used as storage, and many piles of building materials scattered around the property. There were also goats, chickens, and a miniature horse being housed on the property in a fenced-off area. The landowner was then instructed that to bring the property into compliance, an application would need to be submitted for the RVs to be used as dwellings and also for the sea cans used as storage. The other smaller RVs were below the square footage required for a permit, so they weren't included in that. The applicant in turn submitted an application for 1 RV, as the other will be removed in the spring once the weather allows, and for the sea cans. With the application, the landowner submitted the safety code permit for the septic holding tank for the RV, and it is connected to it, as well as an application for the approach. So then we can scroll to the site inspection photos. These were taken in January. You can see they have skirted around. So this one is the one that's in use with steel skirting around it. The 2 sea cans that were being used for storage, and we did look inside of them. He's got tools and quad and different things in there. So it's just a secure storage. That RV in the next picture, if you scroll down to the next page, this is the RV that's going to be removed in the spring. It's not connected to anything. There's no power to it or anything, so I don't believe that it's in use at the time, but this is a condition on the development permit draft that be removed by, I think, June 1st.
That's one we see in the bottom picture beside the goats.
No, that one is actually used for, they had it must have been a goat that had just, I don't know what, the calf.
You're kidding.
So that's the kidding station. They've kind of converted it to have a heat lamp and whatnot in there.
I think I saw the pictures to that.
Yeah. That RV in the middle picture, that one's been drug off to the side. That one has been sold to a salvage place. They're coming to get it in the spring as well. So the subject parcel is zoned agricultural. The RV is a lot under 80 acres. So as previously discussed, it is a discretionary use. It does meet all the required setbacks. The applicant has provided the safety codes permit for the septic holding tank, which is also a condition of the RV to be used as a dwelling. And there's some conditions in there about the skirting and the overall condition, supposed to meet the aesthetic of surrounding properties. And although the skirting on the RV is unconditional, being the steel cladding, subject property is in a remote location with no dwellings in sight, and the RV is hidden from sight in the summer by vegetation on the lot. So it should not interfere with the adjacent landowner's ability to enjoy their property. So administration recommends the development permit DP 240110 be approved with the conditions in the attached draft development permit. That concludes my.
Okay, gentlemen, any questions, concerns? Mr. Stevens?
I have one, regarding safety codes, we're kind of mixing and matching codes when you turn an RV into a permanent dwelling and add to it with external heat and external insulation. Is that outside of our purview? I only ask because I don't know how that goes.
I will, Mr. Chair. So yes, since we're not accredited, it is outside of our purview. But in our process, we still expect if there's safety codes permits that must be obtained. That's why you see the condition that once you get those, give us back a copy. In lieu of that, if they find an inspector that says that doesn't need a permit, what I usually like to see is, can you at least have that inspector send us a letter to that effect? And then we can close off the file.
Mr.
If that second RV was not removed, that would put us into a stop work situation then?
Yeah.
Okay. So it'd take us a while to get it corrected.
It, depending on how accommodating the landowner wanted to be. In my dealings with Mr. Khalid, he's been very forthcoming. He allowed us access to the property anytime we asked. I think he's trying to, you know, I would expect full compliance from them. The reason they haven't hauled it off the property already, they were scared someone was gonna steal it, so they took the axles off of it. And then in the wintertime, trying to get underneath of it and jack it up to get the axles back under it was a bit more work than they had anticipated. So they weren't able to get it out of there before the snow hit.
Okay. Any thoughts? Mr. Gender?
There was just one mention of the C-CAN. If they
Are allowed to have a C-CAN or both C-CANs on the property.
Yeah, it's not, if this application was just for the C-cans, that would have been a permitted use. It wouldn't have even come to MPC, because it is on an agricultural property that's nowhere near a multi-lot subdivision or a hamlet. So it's a permitted use in that district, but we just included it all on the same permit here.
Thank you.
Okay. We can all sit and navel gaze, but we need to move forward. So the area rep want to do anything?
I want to know about the sewage. What I want to know. You skipped through it, you said it's, so they have a field, they have it's the right distance away from everything?
So they have a holding tank installed.
I know they have a holding tank, but it's not a system that is going to work without having it sucked out.
Right. So that's on the owner's responsibility, and our land use bylaw, all it says is that they must have a provincially approved septic system, which the holding tank is. Now, if they were to be, you know, dumping this, pumping it out on the ground or dumping it on the property, then that's definitely not compliant with regulations, but.
Every other one we have them, they have to put in a proper sewage and everything. Why would we not on this one?
But
Clarification.
Mr. Chair.
So when we're not accredited, so we leave this to the provincial inspectors, and having a holding tank that involves a pump out to like Red Willow Lagoon or another facility is a legitimate private wastewater system that's acceptable and used actually throughout the county.
We just approved one action.
And this one is, like, I attached all the, safety codes guides that installed it, all that, the permits are all attached to the application here.
Okay, Mr. Stolberg?
I'll move that the development permit application be approved with the conditions that are included.
Any questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll call the questions. All in favor? That is carried. Okay. Moving on, 7.1 subdivision 202401. Is this the first one of the year?
Yes.
Well, look at us go. All right. Who's taking it?
I will, Mr. Chair. So just to clarify, it's the first application that's got a 2024 coding, but I believe in January we dealt with kind of a carryover from 2023. So I guess it depends on how you want to measure first.
Fair enough. Page 94 of our package, gentlemen.
This application will actually just get you to jump to the interesting one is usually just the parcel drawing, and to try to get Jared to the correct page is going to be, thanks, Appendix A on 102/101. If you want to see the entire parcel, that's probably a good place to start. So the application is for a farmstead removal. It's the first parcel out of the quarter section. In a nutshell, it meets all the requirements of the land use bylaw in terms of size and the MDP as well. It has an open discharge system in terms of wastewater in this particular case, and that 90-meter setback for any new property lines can be satisfied within the pink area. If we just move that up on the screen a little bit. Oh, sorry, I mean, yeah, there we go. The 9-acre site that you see in front of you. The widening along Range Road 17-5 has already been taken care of. And the only wrinkle in this particular application, Mr. Chair, is the use of the existing access, which is on the quarter section to the south, which is also owned by the applicant. And the request is to be able to continue using that, protected under an easement, until such time as maybe they've sold off the farmland or someone else that has the farmstead wants to go through the effort of building a brand new approach. So we don't have anything as a concern from staff about the actual existing ability of the approach to function. So in terms of assessing it, what we would look at is on the proposed parcel that we're looking at creating, is there an opportunity that if that comes to fruition, that they have to create their new access because you can no longer share, do they have enough space to work with? And the answer seems to be yes. Similarly, when we create the balance, the remainder needs a new access point. We have indicated that as a condition, that should be an approach application, and it's an agricultural approach. So the county actually does go out and build those eventually once we get the application in. And it's relatively flat terrain out there. There's lots of space north of the farmstead to site and locate a future farm access to get to the remainder. From discussions with the applicant, the existing, and I'm not sure how long this will go, they allow the current farm operator to use the driveway right through the yard as the access. And but again, we do have to approach these as if that arrangement may or may not last the test of time. So staff are comfortable with the condition of having an access easement registered against the parcel to benefit the proposed 9-acre farmstead removal against the quarter section to the south until such time as at a future date they could add that additional approach. In terms of rural development fund, this is a scenario where they've stayed within or below the 10-acre maximum that a farmstead is allowed, but you still have to justify how much acreage you're using. So in this particular case, we've assessed the large stand of trees as the equivalent of a shelter belt. And in essence, all 9 acres is what we're deeming to be part of the farmstead. So we're recommending no rural development fund contribution. As a first parcel out, as a subdivision, we're not allowed to require municipal reserve dedication. That comes when we're doing with parcel 2, 3, or 4 and onwards. So there's no condition to that effect. So Mr. Chair, the recommendation is approval with the conditions outlined in the report.
So, question I have, just doing quick math, this is 159 acres. Where did the 1 acre go? Was that the taking of the road allowance?
Yeah, when you actually, I don't think we have the title handy, but yeah, a perfect quarter section theoretically is 160, but the vast majority of them are, you look at them, they're 159.8 or a little off. And then the minute you shave a road allowance off of it, it would come out of the 2 titles.
Pretty square country out there, I thought.
I'll make the motion in this order.
Okay. Any questions, any current concerns? Seeing none? Oh, you're lucky. Just.
It's just the easement of the approach, like, should it not be set in place before it is subdivided or passed?
It's a condition?
It is, Mr. Chairman. So subdivision, the approval process is kind of a check and balance system. So unlike development permits, when the subdivision is approved, we give a set of conditions. And then the next step is they have to bring plans back in for what's called endorsement. So what that means is if you don't have all your conditions satisfied, or you don't have an easement agreement that satisfies this condition, I don't give you another piece of paper called a subdivision authority form that allows you to go on to land titles and register your plans. So that's how we ensure the compliance with the conditions. So we could check the text of the agreements to make sure they're doing what we intended them to do.
Thank you.
Okay, now, any questions or concerns? Not seeing any. Okay.
But just on page 104, like right at the very bottom in the notes, it was just saying that the proposed parcel is on the adjacent quarter section to the west. Like it was just a response back. Should that not been for the south?
It should be to the south, yes.
That's the only.
And the only question I had is by the aerial with where the grain bins are. The reason that we approve that is just because they're removable. Like look like they're right on the property line.
The right side, you're doing the ones right beside
The ones right directly east of that would be east of
I
them.
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That was but is that why? Is that why we'd give the approval? Because they are.
The aerial always gives you there's always a little bit of a.
They would be considered ancillary, and so the setback's only 3 feet from the property line.
Even on a bin. Okay, I didn't.
Probably because they're movable, right?
And it's different.
Actually, no, it's 3 feet for all of our farm buildings.
Okay.
What about if they're like bins? If they're on a road, is different then?
On a which?
Road allowance.
Cemented down.
If you've left your property boundary, that's another.
No, but I mean, how far is it in along a road allowance or whatever?
No, they're still theoretically supposed to satisfy that, we still have that site distance problem, so it should still be that setback of 125 from the center line.
You're talking about the paint earth issue.
Yeah, no, that's just what I was thinking. Okay, well, no, I'm fine with it. I just didn't notice that in that picture. And I know the yard too, and he makes a very nice yard.
Okay. You're good now? Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna, seeing no questions or concerns, I'm gonna call the question. All in favor? There you go. It's gonna go. Too bad. Do not recognize that. Okay. Reports. Let's have one. 8.1, 113 Lacombe County. What do they want?
Here, for this
I have-
intermunicipal referral, and we bring our intermunicipal referrals to MPC for, and I realized after not until this morning, I was looking at the agenda, I forgot to actually attach the bylaws. Mercifully, they're short, so I can just ask Jared to pull both of them up. But in the context of the report, you'll get the general gist. Lacombe County, you may recall, last year we had a referral and they had a package of MGP and LUP amendments that were going forward, and one issue became contentious, and it was this issue of a second dwelling on any parcel that's smaller than 40 acres or so at the time. So they're now looking at a policy change that will allow their development authority to consider a second dwelling on a parcel, provided the parcel is at least 10 acres in size. And that's basically the nature of the two changes. So you can see the first one, 1406, sorry, just leave that up. So that's the proposed tax rate smack in the middle where it says amend policy BNV 6.4.1. That's what would be in the municipal development plan. And that should be consistent with, if we switch over to the next one, which is the bylaw to change the land use bylaw itself. I scroll down a little bit so we can see regulations. And that basically says the same thing, that the Lacombe County, if they choose to adopt this proposed change, their development authority would be able to approve a second dwelling, provided they have that minimum of 10 acres. In terms of an impact on what we're doing in the county of Stettler, my assessment is this does not have an impact on us, and that's really how we should process these kind of intermunicipal referrals. So we recommend a letter back to them saying thank you for the opportunity to comment, but no concerns or objections.
Mr. Clerk, would you like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. And no questions or concerns? None. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Trust me.
I'll move on. Department report 8.2.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this was formerly known as the Development Officer's Report, but we are proposing to take a little bit more global and some changes for this upcoming year that we thought we'd go over and share with you. So this will probably also be the opportunity for us just to, if you have questions of us, for the public component of the meeting, they can be asked during the same time frame, and occasionally I'll have things to report, and probably on a more periodic basis, linking into council's strategic plan. But we're trying to look at the tracking of information that we have for development coming into the county and giving more of a quarterly report on what's happening in terms of levels of activity, what kind of categories, where are we seeing the investment values, and trying to pull a few more bits of information out of there, most likely housing starts. You saw us try out a couple different presentation formats throughout 2023, and we're going to try to settle that down to be more consistent. And then when we looked at that level of effort and how long it takes us to kind of build up a meaningful pile of data, so to speak, we thought a quarterly report back to MPC would be worthwhile. So what that would mean is, if I can memorize the schedule, after the end of the first quarter, so at the April MPC, you get the first report. After I think July would be after the close of the second quarter, and then October, and then January would be the year end, because we're past December to close off the entire year. So that's what we're proposing to bring forward in the future. Probably not the lengthy table that you got used to seeing, the Excel spreadsheet of all the DPs that are processing. We'll use that to create the aggregate data and bring that in kind of a more digestible summary type form. We'll be Similarly, same time as on the development permit front, subdivision report would come forward on a quarterly basis. So we're hoping that is in line or heading down the path that you were intending as part of your strategic planning item. And I guess the proof will be in the pudding when we have the first one to show and bring in to you at this April.
Any questions, concerns? Do you like the new program? Don't like the new program? What do you think? I haven't seen it. Well, this is the start of it. Okay.
It is nice though to see the development in our county. I mean, like, even though we don't have to see it here, it comes through your side and then we get to see it, you know, in a different way. So
And that's the one thing I mean, there's lots of stuff that you guys approve at a staff level that we would never see. And then we're like, oh, okay.
Fair enough. So you'll probably the only way to see that would still be those spreadsheets, to be able to kind of scroll down the list and say, hey, I didn't know that happened over there. That's still interested in that. We probably could.
And that could even
in that and bring that.
Quarterly. It doesn't have to be done every.
it doesn't have to be done monthly either.
Any other questions, concerns over there? Can I get a mover for this report then? Mr. Gender? All those in favor? That's carried. So next month, what would we see as it comes forward as your development?
Until April. So even if, unless you want to see for the purpose of knowing what happened, like that doesn't hit your agenda table, then probably look at bringing just that report format, but probably we could look at maybe cleaning it up compared to what you had in the past.
Okay. No new business, no old business. In camera, do you have a small in camera for us? Who would you like to stick around?
I'd say me and Michelle should be fine.
Okay.
And just because we need the motion to come out of camera, and I'll probably forget it if she.
No, that's all right. If that's fine, we got that here. If you just want you.
Do you?
That's completely fine. Do not leave counselors before I get to see you after the meeting.
Okay. All right. Favor of going into camera at whatever time we got. 1:43. That's carried. Thank you, gentlemen.